The remarkable story of Dr. Harvey Castro, a first-generation American and the inaugural physician in his family. Renowned as an emergency medicine physician, an acclaimed author of 19 books, and a pioneer in healthcare innovation with a focus on AI and medical technology, Dr. Castro's journey is a testament to ambition, groundbreaking achievements, and a profound commitment to advancing the medical field. Dr. Castro's roots in Queens, New York, laid the foundation for a life characterized by resilience, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit. Starting from humble beginnings, delivering newspapers, and establishing a vitamin business at 16, his early endeavors highlighted a path of innovation and hard work. Dr. Castro's educational pursuits are as impressive as his professional journey. Alongside degrees in biomedical science and political science from Texas A&M and a doctorate in medicine from UTMB Galveston, he also earned an MBA. As CEO of Medical Intelligence Ops, he seamlessly blends medical expertise with business acumen. In Bethlehem, PA, during his emergency residency, Dr. Castro began authoring books for medical students, leading to his extensive bibliography of 19 books, including groundbreaking works on ChatGPT and healthcare in 2022. In Dallas-Fort Worth, Dr. Castro's career evolved with significant innovations. He developed the world's first IV Meds app, a major leap in medical technology. As a speaker for ACEP and other forums, he has been a guiding force in integrating AI in medicine. Dr. Castro's influence extends globally. He has been a keynote speaker at prestigious events worldwide, from China to Portugal to the USA, including prominent conferences like HIMSS. His insights on AI and healthcare have made him a sought-after consultant for hospitals around the world, helping them navigate the intersection of technology and patient care. He founded trusted medical centers, managing over 7 emergency rooms and a hospital, and his business ventures include staffing companies, a billing company, and a marketing company. In media, Dr. Castro is a familiar face with over 100 live TV appearances and roles as a medical correspondent on major shows. His book, Success Reinvention, and the e-course, AIDE, Artificial Intelligence Decoding and Exploring in Healthcare, reflect his passion for sharing knowledge and guiding others. Beyond his professional life, Dr. Castro is a dedicated family man and an avid learner, always seeking new knowledge in business and self-improvement. Follow Dr. Harvey Castro's inspiring journey on social media platforms. Experience the narrative of a visionary reshaping healthcare and inspiring future generations. In conclusion, Dr. Harvey Castro is not just a medical professional and author. He is a trailblazer in healthcare, a global speaker, a media personality, and a leader in medical innovation. His journey from a determined student to a key figure in medicine is a testament to his dedication, innovation, and enduring commitment to impacting healthcare globally.
All right, guys. Well, I'm excited today. We have a lot of fun stuff to show you guys, and have the honor here in a minute to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Anthony Chang. He's been an amazing mentor. He speaks for himself when he's done so much in the AI medicine world. Literally, I think he's the main person that's ever kind of really pushed this forward. And then through it, we now have different courses out there that we can learn how to use this technology. And he's just a leader in different areas, one of which we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to bring him on stage, and welcome, Doc. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for the overly kind words, but consider you a close friend and a colleague, and we learn from each other.
Yeah, we do. Now, the reason I'm really excited about this one, obviously you have so much experience in the AI world, but then you also have just decades of experience in medicine. And then simultaneously, you've been working with different legal systems as far as attorneys in different cases. So I kind of want to bring that to you and see, how do you want to start this session?
Well, Harvey, as you know, when you're better indoctrinated with AI, you all of a sudden see all the possible ways you can use this very valuable resource, particularly with the advent of ChatGPT and the way it handles language so efficiently. and give us insights. That I saw a really clear opening for adopting AI and large language models in this case for the domain of medical legal work. I've been involved in medical legal work since 1990, when one of my mentors asked me to take on a case, and just kind of really got to like this line of work in terms of teaching all of us about the legal aspects of healthcare and medicine, and also how do we become a better doctor in this arena, and learn about medicine and law at the same time. So probably gone through maybe close to 400 or 500 cases in terms of review, and taken on quite a few cases on both sides, both the plaintiff and the defense side. And I often thought, well, how do we, Steve Jobs is a very smart man, obviously, but I think one thing he got a little bit incorrect was when he said, after he passes, none of his thoughts will ever be embedded into computers, and that's one of his biggest regrets. If you read his autobiography, he says that. I always think that how we think as individual experts in different areas can, in fact, be documented, recorded, and maybe embedded into AI tools, and we'll demonstrate that. But I think there's no limit to what you can actually leave behind, as someone that's gone through a certain domain with expertise and experience.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because at the end of the day, you've said this a couple of times. You speak different languages. You speak medicine. You speak AI. And as physicians, we understand, we speak our own language, and sometimes we have a hard time talking to patients in a way because we sometimes use some of the medical legal stuff. And so with that, one of the key things about AI in my mind is, we have decades of experience. I mean, just you and I here standing here today, just talking, think of all the education, all the experience, all the thousands of patients that collectively we have seen. But is that in the medical textbooks? Is that wisdom anywhere else? And so this is where I think it's so important to have human, someone like us, plus AI is way better than just human or just AI. And I think that's what we're going to show in a minute here. I'm curious on your end, when you see some of the medical legal stuff that you're learning, obviously it may be even hard for you to answer this. What are some of the harder things for new physicians that are wanting to jump into this field and say, hey, I want to be a medical legal expert here? What do you think?
One of the things I think takeaways, and I have jotted down many, many takeaways since we started working on this together. One of the takeaways is that, you're a doctor, you have medical knowledge. That's not enough for medical legal work, because you have to somehow embed that into medical legal framework, which, a lot of experts, when I read their depositions or when I see them in trial, they often will just talk the medical language. So they're trying to speak English when they're in Paris,
Yeah.
Only speak one language. They only hear one language, their own language. They're not really listening to another language and try to be bilingual. And I think you get so much more out, just like if you speak French in Paris, you get so much more out of the experience of that city, because you get to speak to different people and you understand the context of the languages that you hear. That I think the same with medical legal work, Harvey, that I think is so valuable to bring your medical expertise, but at the same time appreciate and understand the nuances that come within the medical legal framework. It's like you become, bilingual in a country that you're visiting, and you get so much more out of the experience, and you're valued a lot more if you understand, some of the legal framework that you have to be functioning in as a physician. And I think a lot of, when I read depositions of a lot of early experts in their career, I see that they're just trying to focus on the medical clinical aspect of the case without seeing, that three-dimensional, if you want to just picture this three-dimensional perspective of what are the lawyers going to think on the defense side? What are the lawyers thinking on the plaintiff side? And how do I, work within this framework, to be an effective expert witness? And that's a lot of cases, a lot of years of, things that worked and things that didn't work, lessons learned, essentially. That's really not published in any books that I'm aware of in a very, very sort of effective manner. There are a few books on how to behave as an expert witness, but I didn't see the experience and wisdom that I would have expected from those books.
Yeah. And I want to say two things. As a general thing, everyone knows I'm really passionate about AI in healthcare, and I keep it simple. One of the key things that I think AI can do is just help us communicate. And I know that's like, duh, but listen to what he just said. If you're in France, you're talking French. I know when I go to any Latin restaurant, I always speak to everyone in Spanish, and I feel like I'm getting a different service because they feel like I can attach to them. I'm going to challenge everybody out there to use AI to help us with our words, our language. And the average, this is old data, I need to look up the newest, but last year Scientific America quoted that ChatGPT had an average IQ of 155. And so what does that tell me? If I have a leverage tool that I can help increase my knowledge, why not? But then if I can have, well, we have Brooks here in a minute, he'll talk about this. If we have some data that I can take advantage and put that with the AI, and go over RAG terms and all that, he'll explain it, or Dr. Chang, but the skinny is, then I'll be able to produce something better. And so going to the second thing, he's got decades of experience that I don't have in the legal healthcare system as he does. And so I am here to learn, but if it's 2 a.m, I'm an ER doctor working and there's no patients I'd like to read, I can't call my friend here, Anthony, say, hey, can we go over some cases? But if I could download his brain, if I could take his knowledge, put it with medical and legal, and then be able to tap into that. Now I literally can bother him at 2 a.m. because I'm getting his knowledge. So with that, there's always the good, the bad, the ugly about what we're explaining. So I don't know if you want to transition to the science real quick, or do you want to keep going, Dr. Chang?
No, I think Harvey, I think you really spot on to describe. It's like, I think it's now possible in 2024 with the advances of AI and particularly transformers or large language models, that we can do a brain dump, in a way, of your cognitive elements, that how you looked at this domain. That's the important thing here, is that it's not published or not publicized anywhere, but you had a certain case that illustrated this particular point that you remembered in your memory as a very, very important. We used to call these clinical pearls as physicians, but these are sort of like, golden nuggets for medical legal work that I think you would like everyone doing this work to understand and appreciate. Again, one of the takeaways is it's less important that you function as a medical expert than a medical legal expert. You need to understand the legal aspect, and most doctors don't spend enough time to understand the nuances of certain elements of how you practice as a medical expert. So I think it's a very simple point, but you'd be amazed how many clinicians don't pay attention to that aspect.
Yeah. And in my brain, the way I see it is we need a bridge, to communicate. We have AI, and then to be able to tap into this knowledge. You said it earlier, getting textbooks, that's great. But you know what? The minute you print anything, it's already outdated. Horrible analogy is like buying a car. The minute you take it off the lot, it's already worth less than what you paid for. And so I think it's really important to be able to leverage AI, because as these new cases come, if there's, a bad example, back last year, there was an unscrupulous lawyer that quoted ChatGPT and said this was case law, and the judge threw out the case. But my point is, if we can have real-time data that goes into LLM that can help restructure, then I can use that as a particular case in real time and help me in my legal medical case. And so having that leverage of AI, or that internet in the background that is knowledge with someone like Dr. Chang, is going to be huge. I'm
combining the vast encyclopedic information, what I call super information. I call ChatGPT super information. is we've never had access to this amount of information before, right? So wouldn't it be great to combine your human intelligence with this encyclopedia that you have access to now? I'm old enough to remember when my mom first got the first set of Encyclopedia Britannica. I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, you laugh, Harvey, but I'm that old to remember that first set of encyclopedia was gold. I mean, it was like sitting on our shelves. The different kids were just like, checking it out, and totally broadened our world in terms of what's available to learn. In a similar way, having the medical, legal, all the cases that are out there, all the not just the landmark cases, but all the cases out there, and your own depositions and things like that, to have that available so that you can work within a really good framework and embed your own wisdom and knowledge so that can be shared. And I think it's probably not an underestimation that what's published in textbook in this domain, I think, is only like 10 or 20% of what you need to know to be functioning at a very high level as a medical legal expert. 10 or 20%. Because I've read some of those books. You don't get, it's one lawyer, or usually a lawyer writes those books. It's one lawyer's experience, right? So imagine, Harvey, you have 25,000 lawyers and experts that are going to be contributing to this effort. It'll be the smartest medical legal expert on the planet in very little time.
Yeah, and I know people out there saying, well, there's bias, and this is it's gonna start hallucinating. How are you avoiding that, Dr. Chang? How can we avoid some hallucinations with this model that we're talking about?
Well, I think people who've done a lot of medical legal work on both sides of the fence, the lawyers and the doctors, will need to curate this very carefully. And if you suspect hallucination, you can always do fact checking or just ask other people who've done this for a long time. So and what's really valuable here, Harvey, is every state has its own sort of framework, medical legal framework, different caps, different years that you can pursue a medical legal case, different ways they treat insurances for these cases. So it's nice that this tool will have the local, regional aspects of these cases to put into context for the case, which I usually have to go look up. This case is going to be in Oregon. So what's the Oregon state law in terms of the caps for injury? How do they treat clinicians in the private sector versus the public sector? All these things come up constantly. I'm lucky that I usually work with attorneys that are very savvy and give me material. But wouldn't it be nice to have this just be available, so when you have a case in Minnesota, you don't have to do a lot of this work on your own. So it's going to be a time saver, and it's going to give you your precious time involved in the case, really focused on the case rather than a lot of peripheral information you have to look up otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that example up. I'm in Texas, you're in California. The laws here in Texas are way different from the ones in California, yet we both, play in healthcare and we understand healthcare well. But there's different nuances that can and cannot be done in each state. So if I had the LLM, large language model, and was able to upload different cases or train the data here in Texas that this is kind of the way things are going, then that model here would be way different than the one you're using. And so this is why I'm even more excited about how this has been created. I think it may be a good transition to bring Brooks up so that he can kind of give us kind of like the background of all of these networks, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to bring him to the stage, and then I'm going to put myself down so that you get your presentation mode coming.
Well, you can stay in, Harvey. I think we can hit the different modes here, like this, for instance.
All right, I'll let you drive it.
All right, so let me just put this up on the stage here. So I'll leave a couple of links after we're finished with this in comments on the live stream for this, and then the other one I'm going to go through. So ultimately, what we're talking about are neural networks and then transformers. We'll get into that in a second. But really, what does a neural network look like, and how does this look? So this website's really good about breaking this down. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we'll just go through a couple of these slides. Ultimately, the ability to sort data and understand and classify, you know, that this is a strawberry, this is a blueberry, this is a dog, this is a cat. That ability, that's very much a human-like ability. And these neural networks, they replicate the way that humans look and see things. So if we were to train the AI to understand the neural network, in this case, the difference between a blueberry and a strawberry, we would definitely have to start training it somehow. And if you've ever solved a Google CAPTCHA, you've more than likely trained a network. You've helped label data, like in this case, what is a car? So if we were to click on this image here of a strawberry, you can see how the different connections between the different points ultimately give it a strawberry. And these different points would be the different trained images that we said were blueberries or strawberries. If we were to do a blueberry, you can kind of see how that would work, how that solves. Again, it's sorting and it's trying to understand what the difference is. You can also start to tease out attributes. So we can look at the length and the roundness. That really helps us to get different points of data to understand, and we'll go through why that matters. The different little circles, they're neurons. So neurons and storing data or different points in our brain. And then the connections between those are called weights. There's also these little hidden layers that have different meanings and different outputs. I won't go into those too in depth right now, but we'll go into those in depth in the next section here. So I wanted to get to this very next one. Okay, so understanding that it has all of this math that goes behind it. And you can see this little equation here. That's really the math behind it. Solves and tries to do this classification. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to what an LLM is supposed to look like. If you've ever heard of parameters in an LLM, for instance, GPT GPT-4 is at 1.5 trillion parameters. This nano GPT model is 85,000 parameters. And you can see the different types of things that it has to go through to understand how this all works. So let me just get to this. Now, if we add in GPT-3 in this case, you can see how much bigger it is. This one, in this case, is I want to say it's over it's well over 1 million parameters. Oops. Refresh that. Sorry.
Cool graph. Love it. Very cool.
Okay. So let me just show you how this works. Start here. And again, I'll put these links in the comments after we're finished. So the simple task that this visualization is going to do is going to sort CBA, BBC. It needs to understand and sort the difference between those letters. And we'll just start this first section. So it'll start to grab all of this data and sort through it. These are called tokens. And then it will take that token output and start putting it through its initial input model. From there, it goes to these weighted vectors. So the last one that I showed you that had the little circles and the lines, that's that model there. And then it starts to go through the transformers. And that's kind of the magic of an LLM here, these last little sections. And as it gets all the way to the bottom, it will start to sort these out and tell you what those inputs were. And so the input and the output should have been the same, and they should be in the exact same order, except now, if we go to GPT-3, it's even way more complex. It's far more layers. And if we were to go to GPT-4, it's easily 10 times larger than this, maybe 100 times larger than this. So I just wanted to give you a context of what an LLM is, how it looks, how it works. Now I'm going to jump into what we call our workstations.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this part because, obviously we're talking about medical legal here, but we're working on several different platforms for the same workstation concept. So we're really excited about just kind of showing you the different use cases. This one obviously is the one we're most excited about just because there's just so much that can be done in this field.
All right.
And then keep posting your questions, everyone. I'm starring all of them on my end here. And then my goal is here when we're done presenting, I'm going to go through and I'll put all the questions up and we can kind of go over them together.
Okay. So what we have here is this is currently leveraging GPT-4 Turbo. It's an OpenAI model. We're leveraging the API to generate the text coming from it. And then we're adding what's called RAG. So RAG allows us to, it's retrieval augmented generation, that allows us to add additional context to the LLM. So I mentioned parameters before. GPT-4 is about 1.5 billion parameters. Means it is trained on a lot of random information. When we start to, for instance, talk about understanding the aspects of a medical legal case, for instance, we need to make sure that we're very much pointing the LLM specifically to the data that we want it to understand and to share. So Dr. Chang created a basic primer on what you should focus on as a medical expert in a case. So what we have here is a document that we've uploaded. So we've uploaded this document that Dr. Chang created. Then we've saved it to the actual workspace here. And now what'll happen is the AI model will only look at GPT-3 or GPT-4 in this case, will only look at this document that we've presented, that we've created. And as a result, I can ask it very simple questions. So as a medical legal expert, what should I focus on?
This document, just to clarify, Brooks, is kind of like top 10 tips in close to 10 different areas that I would leave with Harvey if he said, if he were someone that's just starting out in this area, which he isn't, but let's say he just started in this area. Here are top 10 tips that I think you should remember when you go through cases. I wish I had it when I was starting out, but it's really, I think it's really, really helpful.
I agree. One of the parts that I used to love in medical school was just in residency, going through rounds, just walking through patients, just being able to get that collective wisdom where I could hear from each doctor or medical student and I was learning. I feel like now it's the same way. Now I can take control and ask the questions myself and push it. And I feel from a doctor/safety part better because I know this information has been vetted. It's coming through, and I know you'll talk about the RAG and RAFT in a minute. But it'll make sure that that information is presented to me before getting some hallucination effect. So good.
I think it's helpful for both the new or even seasoned clinician expert, because it'll pick up tips that maybe he or she hadn't, been aware of, but also helps the legal counsel because then he or she can also look at, this is what the clinicians who've done this for a long time is thinking. And I even have as you saw, one of the fun modules I wrote was 10 things that you wish attorneys would appreciate from medical legal experts. And I flip it the other way around too. 10 things that legal experts wish that clinicians appreciate in this line of work. So it's something that perhaps no one really is comfortable talking about, but it's embedded into these modules so that I think it'll help everyone basically.
I agree.
Well, so what we're showing here is the RAG aspect. So we're adding that document and we're forcing the large language model to only look at this document. And the way in which we have this constraint currently is that it will only answer based on that document. If it doesn't exist in the document, it will let you know that it doesn't have that information. And that's how we're preventing quite a bit of hallucination. Now, if we start talking, if we move from RAG to raft, raft takes the first two letters, so retrieval augmentation, and then allows us to add fine tuning, or the FT portion. In this case, what we have from a fine tuning perspective is if you like the response, you can thumbs up that response. If you don't like the response, you can thumbs down. So as an expert, this allows you to start to train the information, fine tune that so that any other people that would be using this that may not have the same level of expertise can start to count on and use the information that's being generated as somewhat gospel.
Nice. Very nice. So did you want to show any other examples?
I ought to ask here. What questions do you think I should ask based on this document that we have uploaded?
Dr. Chang, you want to throw a question?
Sure. There's nothing like a live demo with a untested question. How about what I just said? What is the single most? I'll make it hard for Brooks. What is the single most important tip that a lawyer can tell an inexperienced medical legal expert? Probably wouldn't hire that person in the first place, but let's say the lawyers on the defense side, right? On the defense side, you don't have the luxury of choosing the doctors on your side. So let's make it specific. Like on the defense side, what would you tell that person?
And the thing that I didn't mention last time is that we do have a scenario where we can show the citation, so we can see exactly, based on this document, which portion was pulled out and how good of a match that was.
Yeah, that's impressive. So essentially, wrote a mini book on this topic that to be honest, one of the best things about a large language model, Harvey, is that it ups your game. Like I really had to think, jog my memory and look at even cases that I've had before. Like, what did I learn from that case? And what did I learn from this case? And as I'm talking to lawyers now, I'm retracing, my thinking process. And, it was harder than I expected to put this together because someone could say, well, just write down your top tips. Well, you know what? You're not going to always have it at the top of your head, even though you're the person generating those top tips. You really have to have the discipline to sit down and write them down, which is great for this because once it's memorialized, right, bro, it's going to be there literally like just about forever. Many, many years, after I've leave this line of work, it's going to be there. So that's the exciting thing is as we're talking to other seasoned expert witnesses and also lawyers, it's going to be frightening how smart it's going to be in a very, very short time. It's going to have everyone's experience, not just a single author, which is the big, big difference here.
Yeah. No, and one thing we even haven't talked about is, Dr. Chang, when you get these case studies from the law offices, how big do you think they are if you had to print them? Obviously it's large.
They're often, we haven't talked about how we actually send a PDF of 25,000 pages or 15,000 pages and just say, what is the weakest, argument, it's just things like that are just going to be mind boggling how we're going to be able to find those things. And, even if you don't want to trust it, it gives you a really amazing head start, to look for things that maybe you weren't thinking of, or to find the one blood gas that perhaps was, very key in your argument. That's the other thing is I flip through lots of pages or scroll lots of times, and I just feel like that tedious nature of that part of my job as a legal expert can be really be obviated with a really good, this is not just a search tool, which sometimes is built into those documents, but this is actually having a reasonably sophisticated query that it can help me with. It's like having a research assistant, without paying for one.
Yeah. No, and I know it sounds really basic, but it goes back to communication. If I'm an attorney speaking to a doctor, I don't know the medical language, but I know the attorney language. If you're a pure physician talking to an attorney, there's things that in my world that you don't know, but then here's the AI, here's the bridge that's bringing your world and my world together. And I'm seeing some of the questions, and I'll bring them up because it'll play into this. So do you guys want to jump into Q&A or anything else that I'm missing?
No,
Just
sounds good.
the thing that I'm just going to add is the ability to summarize a case very quickly and get to some key points. It's going to save a lot of time, effort, and money.
Yeah.
Also, Harvey, I was just thinking out loud here. We talked about this having a RAG or repository of information that you really want to focus on, not just for the state, because that's the legal domain you have to live in, but also perhaps someday for subspecialties. You know, I'm a pediatric cardiologist. I do defense work or plaintiff work in this area, but perhaps if you have a case that doesn't directly involve a heart case, but and you have that potential, you know, crossover from different subspecialties to help you, you know, find out if a case is defensible or if a case is possible for a legal action. So it's helpful for many different reasons. It's almost like you have, you know, you can have a brain dump from Harvey, you can have a brain dump from Anthony, you have a brain dump from a couple of lawyers. You know, you're just basically collecting the wisdom of people that you feel like would be really valuable to have in your local repository of information.
Agreed. Let me put some of these questions. I haven't even read this one, but I know I started earlier. This is from Tom. Tom, thank you for coming. It says here, how do we make use of AI capabilities while regulators won't define the risk tolerance and allow startups to experiment with bringing early value? Question. And then it says, taking a wellness and educational approach will only take us so far. Anyone want to jump on that one?
Yeah, I think the regulatory area, as expressed by the Biden executive order, as well as coming out of the EU, are, I think, very well intentioned. But I think 99% of the difficulty is the execution. First of all, how would you even define something that is relatively still vague to a lot of people? And how do you regulate that? Now, the Oppenheimer movie came out with lots of public discussion, and I kind of relate to that movie in the sense that the nuclear bomb, as difficult as it was to regulate, is far easier than AI because you know, it's much easier to regulate and have, you know, evidence that it's being regulated and there's a physicality to that nuclear bomb that AI is not going to have. AI is software. So how are you going to regulate something you can't see, probably don't understand, is going to be a ton of work and so much of it out there already. So I think this intention to regulate AI, in my humble opinion, was too late, too little, and too ineffective in terms of execution. We need to be really good about regulating. But having said that, I think, you know, you have to just be aware that while the hallucination issue is much less than when it started, you know, a year and a half ago, it is still possible. And I think before people were thinking 10 or 20% of content might be not true, but now it's down in the low single digits. So it's definitely getting better. But you do have to have the accountability and responsibility to check everything, right? And then you can always use your human intelligence too to overlook something as well. So I think in this, I don't know if the question was specific for this domain in the medical legal work or not. I wasn't clear. But if you're talking about this domain, obviously it will be have to be fact checked. You know, especially if you're talking about previous cases, you know, those types of things, you'll definitely have to fact check. But it'll be good to kind of maybe gather that information or mention that data or information when you weren't aware of it, right? So it's like the ultimate search. It's again what I call super information that I think will be more valuable than it's potentially harmful.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the next point, and it's from Elliott basically says Gen AI and LLMs are well suited to automate legal work, and I agree. The next one is, and we kind of already chatted about this, but it says, how LLM can help in healthcare. And obviously what we've big picture is, we have gobs of information, a huge amount of data, being able to structure it, being able to have a conversation with it, looking at medical charts, sometimes obviously the devil's in the details. So finding that blood gas, finding that small numeric value that tips you off, some of the simple stuff, patient comes in and maybe they waited 20 minutes, looking at those time schedule. But guess what? Instead of me having to go through 25,000 pages, using an LLM like this to be able to go through all that data, it's just humongous. It may start pointing out things that us humans in a way didn't see. The AI will start pattern recognition and be able to say XYZ, this is pertinent to this case. So that's kind of some of the simple examples specific to medical legal. Another one was Nicole Estes. She just posted one of my books, so thank you, Nicole, for posting that. Let's put up some other questions. Does every LLM function this way? I'll let Brooks, you want to answer that from Nicole?
They fundamentally function similar. Where it's different is the data that they're given to train it and the bias that can be added to that data. So while they function the same way, the output or the results can be very different from model to model. And the more data the model has, the better the response is going to be.
So that famous phrase, garbage in, garbage out, obviously here I'm going to be biased and say we're having the collective wisdom of someone like Dr. Chang to put into the model. And then we haven't really talked about Raft. I'd love for Brooks to talk about Raft. How would this work in this particular case?
So what I mentioned, the thumbs up, thumbs down is the first initial foray into that, the fine tuning aspect. But ultimately, having Dr. Chang be able to look at the response and then put a paragraph summary back to the response of if it's good or bad, and then taking his standing and weighting that based on his expertise. So based on the answers and the responses, if there's multiple people providing information into this, that's where the raft comes into the fine tuning aspect of this, and that's where really that's where the magic happens. Outside of the LLM happening, that's really where you start to get really good, amazing responses.
Yeah.
Hey, Brooks,
Next one.
I was just going to add, in case some of our attendees are not familiar with that reinforcement layer of GPT, it's basically a thumbs up or a thumbs down, which those of us who are in the AI area always feel like that's ridiculously primitive. So it really needs to be refined to the point where, as Brooks was saying, experts with more experience in a certain area will be weighted more because their opinions probably do matter more than someone who just started in this area, for instance, or hadn't had any experience. But it needs to be more than a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It needs to be like a critique almost of the answer to make it really much more sophisticated in a much more expedient way, right? You want it to learn fast. And the fastest way to learn is not just a yes or a no, but how did the answer not fulfill your expectation of the answer?
I love this next question. This is a great transition. Thank you, Nicole. It says, how personalized should you make a prompt or uploading data from a case without risking privacy? Or is it that a challenge to make remaining concern about in order to get a more specific answer? So the reason we're doing this is exactly this. We do not want people just to use ChatGPT and risk the possible HIPAA violations or some of this information that you're putting is intellectual property. I mean, it's just a whole slew. So I'll let both you guys answer. What are we doing different that is different from just going up to ChatGPT and doing this?
So first thing is we're leveraging the OpenAI API, which what they tell us is that it's not used for training, so that can be protected from a privacy perspective. But ultimately, what we can do is take this entire model, stick it in your data center someplace, and then stick a smaller language model behind it, where no data actually ever leaves your data center. It all stays contained so that it's all private. And once it's in your data center, that's how we can maintain HIPAA privacy and all of those types of things.
Excellent. Another one from her. It says, from Nicole, thank you, Nicole. It says, using ChatGPT 4 Turbo opens the opportunity to load that much content to read and make it more concise to speed up the litigation process. So I'm just going to jump at this a little and say, again, I would caution you from using AI in the sense that 100% without a human in the loop, meaning if you're not an attorney and you're asking all these legal questions, you don't know if it's hallucinating, you know, if it applies to your state, your particular situation. So this is why I like our platform in the sense that we're using both human, the doctor, the lawyer, and AI. And kind of like Dr. Chang said earlier, we're fact checking it if it doesn't look right. As a physician with clinical years of experience, I've only been doing ER for 20 years. I know when an output from ER ChatGPT comes out and says it's X or Y. So again, I'm going to caution you to make sure that when you're using this, that you're aware of the hallucination effect.
Hey, Harvey and Brooks, I was thinking that if we do this right, or if our future partners allow us to do this right, it should obviate the need to have 5 boxes of materials to my house. You talk about something that's definitely not safe. I can't think of a worse way to get information of a case to me. So if we think we're safe now, we're sadly mistaken. I think hopefully everything will be locked in that repository. You'll have access to it. So it'll be even safer. I think that's what we should hope for.
Not to mention the time saved from you having to dig through boxes of files, right, to understand what's going on.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because when I don't know however you did it before or now, but when I get asked to review a case, I actually ask the material to be sent to me in both digital and hard copy, because flipping through the pages is much faster than scrolling, Right. So with this, I won't have to do, either, because it will the information will be at my fingertips. I just have to get I just have to ask the right prompt. So that's going to make me much more efficient in terms of looking for specific information, like, what was the lowest pH on the blood gas in the entire case? I will have to flip through sometimes thousands of pages to make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah. And because scrolling is just too inefficient, right? So ironically, scrolling is not efficient. So in this case, I can just ask, the right question.
I do the same thing as you. I'm somewhat old school. I love having a print copy in front of me, but then I also like the digital copy. In fact, I related in my personal world. Sometimes I'll buy the Audible plus the Kindle edition plus the print edition, and then if I'm on a plane, depending where I'm at, I'll use a different format. All right, so I have one more question, and actually I'll post this and I'll see if there's any more questions. But this one's a little tougher. It's from Azitya. Thank you. It says, what is the metrics for assuring that LLM model have a good structure?
Right. I would say, I'll answer that really quick. I would say that it's social proof. So getting feedback, anecdotal evidence from those who have used these models allows us to understand which ones have the better outputs or better structure in this case.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to post this one from Arnold. It says Llama Index is what you want to use to orchestrate data to provide context with your LLM and application. So yeah, there's different flavors out there, and that's one of them. Brooks, on the IT side, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there's Llama Index. The other one that's got the most, that probably has the most popularity, is LangChain, although LangChain's a little wonky compared to how Llama Index works. But ultimately, having a good foundation of how all this stuff operates and works, and having good data scientists and developers will really allow you to move these things forward fast.
Yeah, and I'm just going to post. Go ahead, Dr.
Sorry, Harvey. I was just going to say, we've only explored maybe 5% of what we can do eventually. Because can you imagine that the next step will be multimodal, right? When we get this untracked, will be multimodal, where you can actually put in images, you can do video clips and look at the data from that way. So it's interesting to have, not just experts with lots of experiences, but you're going to add additional modalities to what you have.
Yeah. And then I'll look through the questions. This is from Roy answering Nicole's question earlier, and it says, on the topic of large content sets, Google AI can ingest multiple books. What will it do with all the data? And then he put a link there for Business Insider. But just like you mentioned, Google AI, I see it as different flavors. There's Claude now, Claude 3, and that can take more of what we call token size. So just think of it as just big amount of information. I jokingly call this the AI wars, and I always turn on the TV to see who's fighting who and what's going on and what Google doing and what's Claude doing and who's buying who. So the nice thing is, at the end of the day, all of us can enjoy all this. It's bickering between the big AIs because it's pushing the price down and it's creating new entities. The conversation we're having today, we would not be able to have the same conversation a year ago. So I'm just excited that things are moving so quickly. So I want to wrap up and see if anyone has any final questions, please post. And then any final thoughts from Dr. Chang or Ann Brooks that you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to say that this is the best time to just learn about AI and learn about how you can deploy AI for your specific line of work. Almost every sector, every type of job, every task is being explored. And I still think we're under leveraging AI even for the future. So I think this is a great time to understand how this resource can help you. And it's ahead of schedule in terms of the capability. It's even surprised, AI experts how fast this is developing. Of course, you're totally correct in critiquing that this is maybe too fast. But I think, use it with caution. But not using it is probably no longer an option for very long. So that's the thing is the world's changed, and we're underestimating the impact. And I think this particular area with medical legal work is really, really ripe for developing tools in this area to help everyone.
Yeah. Brooks, do you want to say anything? You want to add?
I'll just say a year ago, we could not have been able to put a large language model like this on premise to maintain HIPAA privacy. Now that we can, we're seeing other models coming out quicker. And as soon as GPT-5 comes out, I believe that we're going to see leaps and bounds improvements. And to Anthony's point about the folks that are not using this technology are the ones that will get left behind. It's the person that's using this technology on a daily basis that will quickly move ahead.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to say, and then I'm going to put Roy's question, I'm going to say, keep in mind, it's AI plus human. I know there's a lot of people fighting it and saying, oh my God, this is the devil, this is the worst thing ever. And the way I see it is, no, this is a supplement. This is helping us. As an ER doctor at 2 a.m, if I'm exhausted, would you rather have me on a computer that I can have a conversation with the computer and about your disease process and know that I'm being as complete as possible? Or would you rather let the human element where possibly I'm not at my 100% take care of you? And I personally think, obviously, you want me to do both. And then I'm going to finish with this part from Roy. And I think it's a nice little summary. And he says, and I hear this a lot, and this is as bad as it will ever be. So think about that. I mean, for all those naysayers out there, this is the worst it'll ever be. It's only going to get better. And so as these new models start coming out, I can't wait to see ChatGPT 5, and then God knows what else is coming out. So with that said,
Apple just announced their AI tool that they claim will totally obliterate the others. Of course, they said that. But Harvey, you were saying AI plus human, but I think in the future, the mindset is going to be AI plus humans, because it's going to be our collective wisdom, not just one person, right? So that's the beauty of this. This is going to be really the best that we'll ever see intelligence, I think.
Yeah. And I'll just summarize what Roy is saying. Basically, if he was having a conversation with someone in Paris, or if he really couldn't remember book XYZ, the beauty of this technology is now he can access that information. Windows, the next Windows edition will have a GPT equivalent on your computer. So this whole conversation you're listening today will be able to be transcribed on your computer. We'll be able to create PowerPoints. We'll be able to send emails of summaries. You'll be able to do that in a second. And so that's where we're going. And I know people can do that now, but I'm just saying that it'll be already on your computer system. The last thing before I forget, we put in the chat Dr. Chang's email, my email for MI Ops. And if you have any questions on how can I have this at my legal office, or hey, I'm a doctor and I want to learn more about this, we have a course that we've set up for physicians that want to leverage AI and have Dr. Chang's wisdom. And to his point, humans, we will start adding different physicians and the collective wisdom that will go into that model. So we're really stoked about this. This is the first time we're sharing this kind of information. And I'm personally humbled and thankful to have met these great two individuals, Dr. Chang and Brooks. Just it's been fun working with them. We've been working together for a while now, and we have so many more things that we want to share with everyone. So in the interest of time, thank you. Any other questions, Brooks and I will, and Dr. Chang will look at the feed there. So I'm gonna close this. Anyone else have anything to say real quick? We're good. All right, so let me just find, I need to get better at these videos thing, but let me just close this.
We need an AI partner for you.
That's right, we do.